Hello? All right, guys. We're going to get started here. Whew, this is my second session back-to-back. I see some familiar faces here. So I apologize if my voice is a little shaky. So good afternoon. My name is Paul Wu. I'm a senior solution architect on the solution architect team for Dynamics AX. I have been in Microsoft for 13 years, 9 of which are with Dynamics. My focus area are data management and integration and mobile. So let's dive in. Cloud-based integration with Dynamics AX. Exciting. Wow, MobileFirst CloudFirst. So this is not going to be a marketing session, just to assure you guys. We're going to be looking at code, deep dive, a lot of fun stuff. But I thought to start out big, and MobileFirst, CloudFirst. I'm pretty sure you've heard this for the past a year or two from Microsoft, MobileFirst, CloudFirst. It's obviously a phenomenon that's going on in the consumer space. Everybody's phones and tablets first. But now it's slowly creeping into the enterprise space. And a lot of the modern businesses are actually slowly moving into the mobile-first, cloud-first world. And obviously Microsoft, as Microsoft, we're also embracing this concept of a mobile-first, cloud-first world by obviously adopting our product portfolio to enable you guys to build applications on this mobile-first and cloud-first world. So you guys all have seen the great things we're going to do for X7, which is super exciting, yeah. But I think we're going to stuck with X7, 6 for just a little bit longer. But that doesn't mean before we, hedging towards the shiny world of X7, everything's in the cloud. That doesn't mean that it prevents us from innovating, right? Doing stuff in the cloud. So that's what this session is for. We're going to concentrate on some of the existing integration patterns with X, right? And then we're going to go explore some exciting possibilities of what we can do with Azure based on existing X 2012 version. And then we're going to do a couple demos. Hopefully, pray with me. It's going to go well because there's a lot of moving pieces. And then we're going to deep dive, look at code, and get some good Q&A going. So if you can, I would appreciate if you go to the mic for your questions. Any question you have, anything I talk about, just ask right away. We don't have to wait until the end. But if you don't walk over there, you can ask, shout it out, and then I can just repeat. Okay. So let's first cover some, boring stuff. X integration traditionally, a couple ways. Obviously, you can do AIF, web services based, right? A lot of functionalities, document services. You can do custom service, write your business logic in X, expose it, SOAP-based. You can do all the WCF jazz you want, right? But then if you want to, we will get into the details of AIF. But for .NET Business Connector, a weakly typed programming model, you can go and write, manage code, talk to AX, run some logic, insert some data. Exciting. And then .NET Interrupt, right? It's very strongly typed proxy classes. You have the capability of writing event handlers in managed code, which you can register the managed DLLs with X, and it gets invoked at runtime. And then part of your business logic can run in the managed world, which is also great. Those two we're not going to be talking about today. We're going to be concentrating mainly on AIF and then the things we can do on top of AIF. So let's get into some details of AIF. I'm pretty sure you guys are well familiar with the concept. Overview-wise, so three-tier architecture, right? You got your clients here. You have your traditional X client, EP. You have BizTalk and all Office add-ins and other applications, external applications you need to perform integration with. And then obviously you can get into X. If you want to expose your AIF as a web service to the internet, right? What do? You will have adapters, right? We have HTTP adapters. You can host your web service on IIS, right? Open port 80. Boom. You can interact and integrate with the internet, right? And also, obviously, we have other adapters like the file adapter, MSMQ adapter. We used to have a BizTalk adapter, but then we decided, well, if you want to do a BizTalk integration, it's nothing but either a WCF call, or you can drop a XML file in the folder, which in which case we will use the file adapter, right? That would be, so we eliminated the BizTalk server adapter in 2012, and we just have the MSMQ, the file, NetTCP, and HTTP if you want to expose your services to the outside, which is great. But we are in the new world of cloud. Cloud first, mobile first, right? So what are the challenges we face in the cloud? You can say, well, there's lots of challenges, right? It's cloud to cloud integration, cloud to ground integration, ground to cloud integration, right? And then obviously we want to do mobile, right? Mobile first, cloud first. We want to have mobile application access logic within X. How do we expose that? Identity management, right? Where do you keep your identity? Do you duplicate it in the cloud? Do you keep one copy in on-prem? Do you federate it? How do you manage it? Obviously, in the cloud, REST comes first. I mean, it's not super popular yet, right? I mean, I talk to my customers when they do integration project, very big percentage of those projects are still SOAP-based and XML, right? As far as integration, not a whole lot of people are using REST, but it's absolutely picking up. If you want to do mobile, REST protocol is absolutely the way to go, right? REST architecture and OData protocol. Of course, network latency, right? That's not something that we can address here, but that's something you have to be mindful of. If you get used to writing an application that runs on-prem, we're talking about a couple milliseconds, maybe sub-milliseconds latency time, right? If we're running across the states, 5, 8, right? If we're going to Europe, hundreds, 100, 200 milliseconds, right? But if we are putting stuff in the cloud, you have to be mindful of, okay, I'm going to have a big network latency here. When you design and implement your solution, you have to architect it in such a way that network latency is being taken into consideration. How do you monitor your cloud app, right? The services running on the cloud. How do you debug it, right? How you do you have one management portal for your different cloud applications, or you actually have a centralized portal where you manage all your cloud applications, right? These are all the different challenges. Interoperability, because in the cloud, you don't really have control over what technology you're going to be interfacing with, right? Scalability and reliability. How do you make sure your message gets across in a secured fashion? How do you make sure if you're using message-based asynchronous architecture, how do you make sure your message don't get lost, right? The message is delivered securely and guaranteed delivery. Scalability, obviously. How do you make sure, as soon as you put mobile in the picture, right? The first reaction is, wow, I'm going to get a lot more access to usage out of my service, because guess what? If a guy's in the mobile train and he's got nothing to do, he's going to use that mobile app, right? You're going to have a lot more hit. How do you handle that traffic, right? In this very scalable way while keeping your costs low. So these are all the, some of these challenges Azure will be able to help you to address, right? And some of these we're going to be talking about today, like mobile app, how do you expose AIF securely through mobile? How do you do identity management? And then how do you expose an AIF service possibly as a REST point, right? Some of these we're going to get into. The rest, some of these Azure will help you. Some of these we're all in this new shiny cloud world together, and we'll probably just have to figure it out on our own. So, just show of hands. Who's here for the last year's tech conference where they gave a session on service bus adapter? Okay. This session is going to be exactly the same, guys. I'm sorry. So you're going to see. I'm just kidding. It's going to be brand new. So I knew. I apologize to the ones that haven't been to last year's session. And okay. Out of the ones been there, how many of you have actually seen how it works? Have used it? Awesome. Awesome. Unfortunately, I'm not going to do a demo of what we have already because I was assuming you guys are actively using it. This is more advanced scenario. But if you're interested in how does the existing service bus adapter works, you can always go to information source or a customer source. We have a video that they did last year where they covered some of these how to use service bus adapter topics. I'll cover, so another show of hands, who's heard of the Azure Service Bus? Who's used it? Great. So that's going to play a big part in our demo. I'll also show some setting up, configuration, and things like that. And so for Service Bus Adapter, it basically gives you a very simple way to expose existing AIF services that you already hosted in AX through Service Bus Relay to the internet. It's very straightforward. There's one-time setup you have to do. Basically, you have to register an Authentication Provider class, which does some authentication. And then, obviously, you have to hook up ACS to talk to your ADFS, Active Directory Federation Service, to do the identification, which we'll show a picture of. But it's one-time setup for you to hook up your Service Bus adapter, and then you can add additional adapters if you created more namespaces in Azure for your relay service. Pretty much no development cost on this one. I have a link in this deck later to point you guys basically a walkthrough of how to set up Service Bus adapter and then the necessary X++ and manage code you have to write to actually set this up. So that's that. Yeah, just give a little bit more overview on this Service Bus adapter thing, how it works. So the basic components involved, obviously, we have Dynamics X, right, where your AIF services are. And then the Azure Service Bus. Service Bus is, for some of the integration folks here, obviously you have all used a BizTalk server before, right? You might have used it as an ESB, right, where you do some orchestration and then you distribute messages. Service Bus plays a couple roles, can play a couple roles here, regardless of X. So Service Bus has two main big roles. Is you can use Service Bus as a relay mechanism, right, which is what we do here, is to relay calls from the internet in a secure fashion into your on-prem services, right? That's the first role it plays. Another role it can play is you can host queues and topics in Service Bus. So you can actually use Service Bus as your ESB, right? We talk about some of the challenges in cloud. How do you deal with reliability, right? How do you deal with scalability, elasticity? Service Bus actually give you the capability of managing all that. Obviously, in our particular case, we use Microsoft ADFS to provide the identity of a user who wants to call into AX from the internet, right? So how do you say, for example, who have seen our timesheet, expense, and approval mobile apps, companion apps? Ah, great. So for those types of apps, right, first you would log in with your corporate credential, right? So your Active Directory actually sits on-prem. And we use Microsoft ADFS to act as the identity provider to Azure ACS, Access Control Services, to provide the identity of a user. This is a good diagram that describes how everything plays into the bigger picture. Obviously, we have mobile clients here, right? Could be your tablet, phone, whatnot. And then we have LS sitting quietly here with your AIF services exposed on-prem. And then we have a WCF services here. If you're using a Service Bus adapter, it's hosted on IIS, right? So when you create an integration port and you pick a Service Bus adapter, after that you have to pick the website on top of which you're hosting this, right? Which means it sits on top of the existing website you define on IIS. The first step is, and obviously the firewall is there, so everything sits behind the firewall, secure. So this middle tier WCF service acts as a listener that listens to messages that could be forwarded by the service bus relay, right? So you say, why is this secure? Like, what's the difference between this and actually open up port 80 and allow inbound traffic to hit my web server and to access my AIF, which I'm sure is what you guys are doing if you want to expose existing web services, AIF services to the internet clients, right? So what's so different about this one? So very good question. So the connection we establish here is actually outbound. So this is the outbound port, right? Which means we allow an outbound connection to service bus relay. It's a bidirectional outbound port, right? So those messages can go back and forth through this channel, but only our traffic from here can call into the service bus relay. Nothing can come in, right? We're not exposing an inbound 80, port 80 to the internet, right? So this is completely secure. So you say, okay, your Active Directory service sits on-prem. How do we get to it, right? So you set up ADFS here. This picture is a little confusing because really, if you're saying, okay, I'm going to hide my Active Directory service behind the firewall to make sure it's secure, but I'm exposing my ADFS outside the firewall. So what's the point, right? If ADFS is still exposed, people can still get to it. You're hiding one thing by exposing another thing, right? No. So it's a little, in a real world scenario, this ADFS actually sits inside the firewall, right? And then you actually have an ADFS proxy sitting in the DMZ zone, right? If you're interested, follow up with me. We just don't have time to get into the details, but follow up with me after the session. We can get into the details. But for now, let's just say we have some kind of an endpoint exposed to the internet from ADFS, right? So that ACS can actually hit it to say, when you set up ACS, right here, ACS is basically saying, from Azure saying, hey, how do you identify yourself, this user, Paul Wu? You say, okay, I'm actually a corporate citizen in Microsoft, right? And Microsoft actually has an ADFS server here, which can access my AD on-prem. I'm going to hook up ADFS with ACS. So ADFS will be the identity provider to my ACS and provides the identity for me to be able to call into service bus relay. And ultimately, it will call into this. We'll see the flow. It'll become clearer. So the first step is user, right, Paul Wu. I give my Microsoft credential, right, to ADFS. And ADFS knows who I am because it connects to my on-prem Active Directory. It'll give me back a SAML token that is signed by a certificate here and contains my corporate credential. In this case, we use Windows account name, right? It'll be contained here. Another tricky thing is we actually have to go to ACS and ask for the second token because the first token over here we use to access AX. But we need another token to be able to access the endpointing service bus, right? So we actually give that token to access control service. Since we already set up access control service with the ADFS, so there's a trust relationship between the two. So ACS knows I'm legit, right? So it's going to give me another token, which is a simple web token, back to the mobile app. What my mobile app's going to do is it's going to package both tokens, right? If I'm using SOAP, I'll put the SWT token in my SOAP header so that the service bus will actually take it out and consume it, right? So I'm going to send both tokens plus my service request, which is a call into AIF, into service bus relay. And this relay is going to consume the first simple web token because that's what allows you to access the service bus endpoint. And then it's going to pass the rest of the stuff, the token, the XAML token, which we got from here, and the service request to the middle tier listener service, right? In case of a service bus adapter that we ship out of the box, you guys don't have to worry about this, right? As one time set up, then you're done. You don't have to write any logic here. As long as you pass this stuff, the token in here with your SOAP message, we're going to unpack it, right? We're going to use the services from WIF, Windows Identification Foundation service, to take the identity out of your message and make sure it's actually legit by using the same certificate that you use here to sign a XAML to identify that token is actually legitimate, right? To make sure it's actually to prove its authenticity, its confidentiality and integrity, right? And then after all that is done, I got the Windows name, which is Paul Wood, right? Then it's going to call into AIF. And then when I call, and this, you guys know this, when I call into AIF, right, if I don't pass in a username, I'm not impersonating, you'll be calling into AIF as the process who's running, as the person who's running this process, right? So if you use a service account that runs this process, you'll be using the service account. But the point of all this authentication is that I can, so that I can call into AIF in a impersonated way, right? So when I call into from the listener service into AIF, I'm going to pass in the logging as user, right? Which is my name, and call into my AIF service. In case of timesheet, it'll be, if I'm creating a timesheet or expense report, it'll be created on my behalf, right? So far, so good. I know it's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces. Any questions? Security, certs. Great. Yeah, it's going to make the call, the call's going to go back, and boom. So a couple of things involved in setting this up here, right? Configure Azure, publish. Are you guys familiar with all this? Do you want to see how things are in Azure? Maybe I'll quickly show that. I'll run through these slides, and then we'll see it for real life. So basically, what you need to do if you're using the either way. So it's two ways to do it. You can use the out-of-the-box service bus adapter, or you can actually customize, develop this listener piece on your own. All right? And we're going to talk about the reason why you would do it, and then we're going to jump into a demo and to see how. So you're going to have to create a service bus namespace, obviously, right? And then you're going to have to configure the ACS to say, you know what? The trust relationship between my Azure endpoints and my on-prem identity provider is here. In this case, it's our Microsoft ADFS that's exposed to the public, right? And you have to obviously register the custom authentication component in X, right? We have a Azure Service Bus configuration form you can open up and set things up. And then Service Bus connection information in X, your namespace name, your keys, your owner name, and things like that. And obviously, you have to create a new port for the service you want to deploy on Service Bus. You know, you pick the adapter, which is Azure Service Bus, and you pick the website you want to host it on. Develop client app. This is, most people, I think, there's a couple of areas they were running into trouble. First is setting up ADFS. How many of you had experience setting up ADFS for the companion app? And you've all loved it, or? Yes, I feel your pain. So for companion app, setting up is not really straightforward, unfortunately. But how many of you have actually developed a mobile app on top of this infrastructure? Great. One. Great, awesome. So how do you guys, we can think up afterwards, but for the ones you guys who have actually tried to develop a mobile point against this, I guess the big part of it, the upfront cost is super high because you have to handle the authentication handshake, right? You have to handle getting the tokens. You have to handle package it into the message and then send it off and things like that. So in order to build a client app, this is what you have to do. First, you have to authenticate the user with ADFS, right? And then you get the token back, just like the big picture I was showing. And then obviously you have to say, hey, I'm authenticated with ADFS. Next step is for me to authenticate against Azure, ACS, to get the second token. So that you have to do regardless of how many mobile clients you write, you have to do that. And then obviously, as soon as you get those two tokens, you can send it off to Service Bus. For the 3 or 4 guys that actually have been through this experience, I think it's unfortunately not very straightforward. But everything comes at a cost. And we're going to dive a little deeper. So so far we've been covered like the existing stuff, right? Existing Service Bus adapter patterns, how do we expose AIF out to the internet. Before I go into the exploration, if you indulge me, any questions at all? Okay, yes? Service bus relay? It's a very good question. So that depends on where. So if you create a namespace, right, you actually have the option of which geolocation you want to create that namespace, right? So say if you're hosting your mobile service in North America, or West Coast, right, you would pick West US. And then there will be a certain, if your client is actually located somewhere in West Coast US, there will be a certain, I don't know the number, but there will be a certain network latency associated with that. But I guess I don't have a direct answer to your question, but what to watch out for is be mindful of where you're creating your namespace, right? So sorry, I forgot to repeat the question. The question was, what's the network latency for the service bus relay? Any other questions? Have you guys run into issues setting up the CERT? How do you make sure that everything's secure? Do you have any other questions regarding that? Oh, great. Cool. So, okay, so that's the existing stuff. The more exploratory stuff is, so we have great things in Azure, right? You can have things like, show of hands, who's worked with Azure website? Who have created a website with Azure? Okay, great. Azure mobile service. Great. A Windows universal app. It's okay, I don't work for the Windows team. Okay, cool. So let me just give you guys an overview. What I'm trying to do is show you guys based on what we've seen so far, with this architecture, and with maybe we'll write a custom listener service where we can do a lot more than the out-of-the-box service bus adapter. How we can build other applications in Azure on top of that, right? So for example, the first demo I'm going to show you guys is I created an Azure website. So it's running on Azure. Obviously, it's exposed to the internet. From the Azure website, I'm going to create a customer. And the customer, so this, imagine I'm in the browser, right? So let me just go there. You can use browser of your choice, obviously. So you hit your Azure website, right, which you deployed on Azure. And then this is going to call, imagine this would be your mobile clients, right? This will actually call into service bus. And service bus will really are called into our middle tier WCF service, which in this particular instance, we actually wrote one custom, right? And then from there on, it's the same old stuff. It calls into AIF and so on and so forth. The authentication obviously is done the same way, where the Azure website actually calls into ADFS, and then ADFS talks to the on-prem AD domain controller and gets identity for you to use. So any questions so far? All right, let's see it. I'm going to make a prayer to Azure God. Okay, so this is my AX customer list page. So just to show you, I'm not faking here. So basically, I'm going to create a new customer called Paul Wu. Okay, so there's no Paul Wu in there. So as you guys can see up top, this is actually an Azure website, right? It's running on Azure, azurewebsite.net. Yeah? So I'm going to go ahead and create a new customer. All right. First time is always slow. I call it Paul1. Give it a canal number. And just give it a customer group. And hit create. So what this is doing is it's actually calling into service bus. Service bus relays that call into AIF. And then actually AIF calls into This is the custom listener that I wrote, so it's going to call into the listener. The listener is going to get this call and then creates a customer in X. Let's see if it exists in X. Sometimes it doesn't show up. F5. Hey! So I get excited every time I run this because I think it's cool. So let's see exactly what went on underneath the hood. In order to debug, let's see, we are here. Obviously, I can connect to the actual website that I'm running on Azure, but the debug it's a little shaky. So I'm going to be running a local website instance so I can debug on my local machine. I have the breakpoints here enabled, and I have a local instance I'm going to show you later. But before we do that, let's get into some code and see exactly what's going on underneath the hood. So this is the code. Can you guys see it? So this is code where we say, hey, you know what? The first thing to do is send the request to a secure token to ADFS, right? So as you can see here, we're constructing the endpoint. Or before I get into this, let me show you what I have. So this is a one-box setup where I have AOS running, I have ADFS running. This is Contoso domain. This is just a regular demo box, right? I have ADFS running. It's connected to my Contoso AD. I've exposed endpoints on my ADFS. This one, all right? So this one is the one I actually use as my STS endpoints in my client app to hit the ADFS, right? So I have that. And if you look at my certificate here, this is secured by a public certificate authority issued cert. I don't want to get into the details of how this cert works, but in short summary, if you want to absolutely prevent people from spoofing your public key, the only way to stop that is getting a public key signed by a publicly recognized certificate authority. In this case, it could be GoDaddy or VeriSign or whatever you choose to get your certificate from, right? In this case, I just got one from Microsoft. So basically, your chain of authenticity, right, goes up to a root and then say, okay, this root everybody trusts, so we're good. Nobody's spoofing me. So you set that up in your ADFS. So that endpoint is secure. And then I have the relaying party trust, which is set to the Azure Service Bus, ACS, right here, right? So that's where it's established the trust relationship. And also, obviously, in my Azure, if I go to my service bus, which this is, and it's just going to show my, it's okay, configure. Oh, I'm in the queue page. So if I go here, it's mobile, connection information. Okay, so this is where I say, the identity provider that I have hooked up with my ACS is my Contoso ADFS, right? And you can see this public DNS name is the DNS name of the Azure VM that I'm using, right? That's where the trust relationship is established. Yeah, I think this is good. This ADFS is good. Okay, so back to the code. So this is my Azure website, right? In my Azure website, when I click that Save button, it's going to call into this. and then it's going to call, hey, send the request for security token to my ADFS endpoint, right? And then it's going to pipeline that request. Then the request HTTP request is going to call back with the response string to say, you know what? This is the string that I'm going to return you based on the credential you gave me, which is this call. And then we're going to extract the XAML out of that response string, right? And you may ask, so how do you guarantee it's secure? It's a XAML string, you can parse it out, right? So this is done through, when I'm on my ADFS, right? I actually, I set this certificate that everybody uses, right? To basically, it's transport layer security, right? SSL or TLS or whatever. So everything goes through the wire is encrypted, right? And there's no plain text going through the wire. But when it gets to our client, obviously it's plain text so that we can actually read it. So we parse the XAML token out, right? To say, okay, I got the XAML token. What's next? I'm going to go get the ACS token so that I can access the service bus, right? So here you can say, I'm going to send token to ACS. So if we go here, it's going to construct the payload, again, called the ACS endpoint, which is the relaying party trust we set up in ADFS. And then this guy's going to come back with another message to say, hey, here's your ACS simple web token, parse it out, right? So now we have two tokens. So in my controller, after I get the two tokens back, I would say, this code you guys should be very familiar with, right? That's the way you instantiate a AIF client. Use the inner channel as the operation context scope. And then you see this? Create the header, first header. And then put the XAML token, the simple web token in there. So that's the first token we put it in the header, right? Which is consumed by Azure so that you can access the service bus endpoint. And then XAML is, XAML, it's here, right? So you put two tokens in the message, and then you call create customer, all right? So when you call create customer, it's actually going to call into, I have a Windows service running here. It's called Customer Connector Service, which is a custom developed middle tier WCF service, right? This guy's here, and I can show you guys the code. So this is the SOAP endpoint we expose, right? First we do is we parse out the XAML token from the header. Remember we put it into the operation context before. We'll parse it out. We'll use some Windows identity management services, magic, to get the Windows account name, which in this case would be, if I'm calling with my credential, it would be Paul Wu. And then eventually it actually calls into X and creates the customer. So let's see that. This is a local instance. You can see, right? This is Azure site I'm running actually in debug mode on my local host. Let me make sure the breakpoints are enabled. Okay. And create new. Let's say Paul Wu 2, 20. Create. Okay, here comes the first breakpoint where we call Authentication Provider issue a token, right? I let it go. So this is the send request to ADFS. I send the HTTP request to ADFS, say, hey, give me a XAML token. This is where it gets the response back, parse out the XAML token, right? And then it will go ahead and call ACS, right? Calls ACS, get the simple web token, right? This is where we construct a payload to ACS. We send the request. again, it'll get a callback with the ACS token. Now, everything is success. Yes. And then we're going to call into X. So if I let this go, my other solution should pop up. The one that's connected to, oh, yep, this is the code calling into AIF, right? Get the 2 tokens into the message. So notice I'm in a different solution now. Right? So this is actually the middle tier service that I have running, right? Calls into this, and then this is actually the one that eventually calls into X with the account name parsed out. So that's the entire flow. So if we go to X, I have to show you that to prove that actually it worked. Should be another poll. Yay! So you say, okay, that's cool. Okay, you create a customer in Azure and you saved it. It's the same old, right? It's still going through the custom service. It's nothing new, right? So, okay, let me try to impress you more. You say, so why you develop the custom provider for, right? It does the same thing Service Bus Adapter does. Calls into AF, right? One thing is, there's some limitation associated with using the Service Bus Adapter because it obviously can only be associated with one namespace, right? So if you create another namespace, you have to do another adapter, another port. And obviously, one big thing is it only supports SOAP and XML, right? Everything here is a SOAP call, right? When I write my Azure service, you might have a question for those who didn't develop this to say, okay, wait a minute, you have AIF running on-prem, relays through Service Bus, but when you develop your client, where are you getting your WSDL from, right? Where is that WSDL coming from? Because it's behind the firewall. Well, the trick is when you actually define the Service Bus endpoint relay, you not only define the endpoint in Azure as a relay endpoint with the relay bindings that Azure provides us. You also define a iMetadata exchange endpoint locally. So you expose that WSDL endpoint locally on-prem. When you develop that web client, you actually assume we're on-prem. And then that's how I talk to that the WSDL and generate my client services. And just a lot of stuff that's, if you're using SOAP, you're limited. So a beauty of doing a custom listener service is you can actually introduce another layer in there to say, hey, you know what? Instead of exposing AIF as a SOAP endpoint, I can actually expose it as a RESTful endpoint. Right? That's pretty nice. Let's see how that works. So who's used or heard of Fiddler? Yes. I love you guys. So I have Fiddler here. Let me just clean things up a little bit. So if I just try to hit, basically the service for this demo, the service I have written is basically a lookup function, right? If I'm calling a RESTful endpoint, I don't have to have contract, nothing. Just that URL, right? That's where my customer is. If I want to look up a certain customer, I'll just give it an ID, right? Find my customer. It should return me some data. So if I just put this in, so let's find a customer that we created. Let's say it's find by customer account. Oh, no. AX, please. Oh, no. Respect. Okay, what I wanted to do is copy this. Good. And put it here. So if I just paste this into Fiddler, what do you guys think would happen? Right? I'm doing a get. I'm doing that. What's going to happen? So if I execute. Is there a problem with this? Oh, sorry. You guys probably can't see it. Is there any problem with this? Very good. So even if you're calling a REST-based endpoint, you still have to do the authentication, right? That's the beauty of this whole identity management thing is it's a secured way for you to call into. Either you go, regardless of you going SOAP or REST, you still have to carry that identity somewhere, right? So if I just do execute, obviously I'm going to get a 401, right? Right here, right? It'll say unauthorized. Bummer. All right, let me try again. So I'm actually doing a little trick here. Basically, I've written a little console app. It does nothing but pin the ADFS and gets a XAML back, and then use that same XAML and pin ACS and gets a simple web token back. That's all it does. Okay? I'm just going to run it quickly. Okay, it already updated my token here. Whenever Visual Studio gets back. Okay, I'm going to copy that and paste it in the header. Right? So my customized header. Is that enough? So this is only the token from ACS. Do I? Yes, there are 2 tokens. One XAML? Yes. Very good. So do we really need it? So the first token we use, so in this particular case, right, we're calling, sorry to put you on the spot, man. Yeah, this one we got is the simple web token because we're only hitting the Azure endpoint here, right? This is the Azure endpoint. And all it needs to consume is the simple web token. The XAML token is actually for AX, right? It's for carrying over the identity of the user. But if you just want to authenticate against service bus, the simple web token is the one you need. I should be quick because it probably will expire pretty soon. So let's hit it before it expires. So hopefully we'll get a, let me clean here and execute. It hits my service. Look. So this is actually the REST service. It's a different service than the one you guys actually saw before, right? This is the same Windows service that I have running, but it exposes 2 different endpoints. One is the SOAP-based, one is the REST-based. The REST-based, actually, I expose 2 interfaces. One is the one you can actually look to do find, like this. One is obviously the one you map to create, just like we did. But for this particular demo, I'm doing a find, right? So I'm just going to show you the call stack real quick. And it's not really much. It's just getting a call from the WCF stuff. Let's let it go. And hopefully we'll get a 200 back. Oh, there it is. All right, 200. And let's open that up. Ooh, look at that. You guys see it? How do you like that? A JSON with X customer in it. Man, you guys are so hard to please. So that's pretty cool, right? And that, I hope that actually also help you guys to some understanding of exactly how the 2 token works, right? The first token is just for the service bus. In this case, when we call into AX and then find the customer, we don't really need to be, personated as somebody, right? In this case, we're just looking for a customer. But we could, right? You could get another token. You could get the XAML token and then just package it into the JSON, right? Just make sure your WCF, the custom WCF listener service is capable of decoding that JSON message, right? That's all you need to do. Get that JSON message back. It's going to be a XAML token. You do exactly what you do with the SOAP service. You call identity, the WIF, and then say, hey, you have the cert. Here's the XAML. Parse out the identity for me, right? In this case, it would be POWU. Then you can call into AX as POWU. That part, the authentication part, is exactly the same. May you calling it from AI SOAP or REST. The benefit you get from REST is obviously the benefit you get from REST. So that's cool. Oh, yes.
So, and if I already now implement the solution in the middle tier, custom service, why then I call via SOAP and AAF to AX and not by business connector or something like that?
You could.
So with the identity,
It doesn't matter how you're getting.
no problem.
If you're
Again, all the HTTP traffic inside of my trusted domain.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it's easier to expose this AAF service
Yes.
from development
Yes.
perspective. But if I have a bunch of .NET developers, I think it's easier to tell them to a good middle tier service.
Yes, but at the same time, you get a lot more capability from AIF document services. Right? And you have query services too from AIF. Yeah, I mean, technically you can do, as soon as you're on-prem, right, you can do whatever you want, right? Just make sure you actually keep using that identity you got from XAML. That's the key point here, right? I mean, if you don't use that account name, it's just going to be whoever is running that middle tier service is going to be calling the one calling into AX, right? So make sure you actually use that XAML token. That's one important message here, is how you safely, securely get an on-prem identity from your mobile application through Service Bus Relay back into on-prem, and then call AIF services as that user. Yeah, any other questions? I have one demo to go. Yeah, I foreseen 2 demos, probably won't impress you guys, so I prepared another. So I'm trying my best here. So another demo is not. Oh, let me switch back to my slides. So that you guys have seen. This one you guys already seen, right? Fiddler or whatever your proxy tool is. Just send a HTTP request essentially into this, calls into our REST service in the middle tier, and then boom, doing an AIF call, and then gets back a customer as a JSON, right? So same flow. It's just this web endpoint here we're exposing is RESTful endpoints because we get asked by customers a lot, like, oh, okay, how do you expose REST endpoints for AX, right? We're not actually doing a whole lot of magic here per se because it's all from WCF, right? It's just a matter of introducing that extra layer of mapping, I guess, right? So Service Bus Message Queue plus DXF. So anybody is familiar with DXF? Heard of it? Seen it? Used it? Cool. Have anybody used the Service Bus Queue? Pops up? Okay. So Service Bus not only can be, so forget about the demo and the stuff that I just did, right? As far as Service Bus Relay is concerned. Right here, we're using Service Bus as its second role, like I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, which is as a message broker, right? You can define message, you can define queues or topics on Service Bus namespace. And this is basically a asynchronous, batched way to get data from external applications or sources into AX, right? How it works is, say I have a whole bunch of mobile clients here. In my case, in the case of my demo, I actually have a Windows Store app running here. And then I use another concept. It's called a mobile service, Azure Mobile Service. Anyone have used that before? Okay. Azure Mobile Service, anyone have heard web APIs? Great. So you can, this is my understanding of what Azure Mobile Service is. It's nothing but a superset of web API where you have some built-in functionality specific to your mobile devices, things like notification hub, right? You can register your store app, right? And then whenever you insert a record or whatever, you can send toast notifications to your devices. It's nothing but a platform, a web-oriented, mobile-oriented platform for you to host web APIs that will also give you some convenient way to communicate to your mobile devices. I know that helps or not, but that's how I see what Azure Mobile Service is. It's basically a backbone to your mobile application, right? And Azure team has built a lot of rich functionality around integration because you can actually, in this particular demo I'm going to show you, the Azure Mobile Service talks to a Windows Store app, and then the DB is actually, I'm using an Azure DB in the cloud. They actually have built the thing called hybrid connection, where you can actually run your middle tier Azure service, mobile service here in Azure, and then it actually goes on-prem in a secure fashion and talk to a SQL server you have hosted on-prem. So you have the capability of doing that. And that is actually done through Service Bus Relay underneath the hood. But for this particular, let me relay back, for this particular demo, I'm using mobile service here, which, if you're developing a mobile app, most likely you'll be using this as your backbone. Scalability, reliability, and all that comes to mind. And I have here a call to Service Bus, so I'm going to create a couple customers here with my Windows Phone Store app, say 3 or 4 customers here. And then every time I create a customer, the mobile service is going to call into Service Bus and publish each customer as a message on the queue, a customer sample queue that I've pre-created, right? So far, it's all this side of the story. We haven't talked about anything about AX yet. So after that is done, I actually have a queue service running on-prem. It's just nothing but a little console app I've written. It does nothing but to check, hey, do you have anything on the service bus for me to get? Do you have anything on the service bus queue for me to get? In this case, I'll create 3, 4 customers. I'll grab this off the service bus queue, and then I'll put it into a folder, a predetermined folder, where I have a DIXF batch job pre-scheduled, like in a predetermined occurrence. And check, hey, do I have any file in that folder? If I do, I'm going to absorb it and then import it into my customer table. So let's see that. Before that, I show you the queue I have here. So it's the same service bus namespace I used, but it's just coincidental. So queue length here is 0, right? I don't have anything here yet. Oh yeah, let me show you while we add it. The relay endpoints here, right? One is customer, which is the SOAP-based. The other one is the customer REST, which is the REST-based endpoints. The relay points we declared here, right? Okay, coming back to queues. We have nothing in the queue. And then I have a Windows Store app running here. Here, and then I will show you. It's actually talking to a Azure Mobile Service in the cloud, right? That is my Azure Mobile Service endpoint. Now you guys see my secret. Okay, I have that, so I'm going to create a customer here. 3, putting an account number, putting a group, save it. I'm going to refresh. Now it's actually talking to the SQL server on the Azure SQL Server. I'm actually creating these customers on the Azure SQL database. Azure God is not happy on my third demo. Let's see what's going on the queue. It's weird they don't have a refresh button, so you can have to kind of go back and forth. Okay, bear with me just a little bit. Sometimes it takes a while. Oh, maybe I have a breakpoint. Good point. No, you wouldn't hit any of this because that's why we have that demo. It's we don't hit these. Azure God do not want me to please you guys. Oh, nothing. Let's see. This is the client I'm running. Oh, probably timed out. No. Windows Store app is. It actually went through. Okay, let's see if it actually created an item. So it actually got saved in Azure SQL. Let's see if it actually. Ooh, there we go. Ha. So we got one in the queue. Let's try two more. Oh. So 4, and let's do 40. Save that. Much faster. 5. 5. Save that. 6. Okay, let's just get one more in there. Oh, yay. Okay, we have 5 customers. That's good. Let's go back to our Azure queue. Hey, look at that. 5. Okay, we have 5 in the queue. Oh, my Zoom doesn't want to come out. Demo God, what did I say to piss you off? Oh, this is so fun. I'm going to find that, zoom it, and kill it. Almost there. Die. Yes. Whoa. While I'm at it, do you guys have any questions? It'll be worth it, promise. Zoom. Oh, okay, there you are. Die, please. Oh, wow, thank you. If I knew you guys were so easy to please, I wouldn't do this demo. Okay, I have a message queue. Let me run this guy. This just, like I said, it was a simple, very simple console app. Hard to read, queue to quit. So I'm going to read. Before I read, I'm going to show you the folder that I have set up here. Yep, so file path. I'll drop it here, right? So when I read, a file will show up here. And then the batch job I have running on AX will actually come here and pick it up. Okay, let's read it. Just show if you're lucky, it'll be dropped and then get picked up right away. If we're not, then we'll have to wait a minute or so. Because I schedule the batch job to run every minute. Oh, there it is. Let me copy that so we can see it. You know what? Let's just wait. You know, what happens is, here we go. It went. See that? Okay. DXF will actually pick it up, process it. This is entirely DXF. I'm pretty sure you guys. If it's processing, it'll put it in a processing folder, and obviously it's already done, so it'll put it into a completed folder. Which one today is 3rd? So let's open it up. It's just a whole bunch of data inserted. So if we go to the big finale, F5, yes. Thank you. So yeah, that is the demo. I think I have one slide maybe. So using Service Bus as queue, this is some of the possibilities that we can do, even if we're still X6, we're not X7 yet, but Azure is there, and a lot of cool stuff is on Azure, and as you guys are starting to do your mobile initiatives and exposing your corporate resources out to the internet, there's a lot of innovative stuff that we can do to take advantage of existing functionalities offered by Azure. Right? We don't have to wait until X7. Some resources. The white paper is on develop the mobile client and how do you develop the middle tier WCF service. How do you expose that as a RESTful endpoint? Does that? Yeah. I think I'll write a blog or something. So if you guys search for AX SA blog, the SA group have a blog, so I'll probably post a blog on this, the things that you guys have seen today. This one is on the Service Bus adapter, this link. The developing, this is great. So for the store companion apps, we've heard a lot of requests. Hey, it's nice you guys have the companion apps. It's all HTML5, JavaScript, right? Can we get the source for it? Everybody's like, not really. But we actually just posted like 5 days ago. This is live on MSDN. Just search for this. It's all yours, the source. It has JavaScript for you guys to ping ADFS, get the token back, ping SCS, everything's in there. So here's encrypting configuration information. We didn't really touch on that because we didn't have time. RSA containers to make sure the stuff you store in your web config file is actually secure. So that's that. Obviously, please evaluate this session. If you guys liked it, happy, please vote for me in this session. And then make sure, I don't know which side is satisfied, but sometimes I get like 20 satisfied, and then one guy is like, I'm not happy. So he probably got it reversed, so hopefully that's not going to happen for you guys. So questions? Yes?
I hear from people, everybody complains, struggle with certificate for IDFS or requirement that they need to be provided by the authority. Is there any recommendation about how, if we want to test several different services, how to do it in some way, which is also not flexible to ask for qualified.
Yes, so the question is, it's just pretty damn hard to set up ADFS and cert and make sure it's publicly recognized, CA, and I hear you. It's really hard to set that up. For dev and test, even for dev and test, you need one because eventually you want to expose your ADFS out to the internet, and then the way you actually secure that endpoint is by signing it with the SSL you get from a CA, publicly recognized the CA. There's no way to get around that, unfortunately. But it's pretty easy to get one though for your domain. You can go to GoDaddy or VeriSign or what, and give it a domain name you want a certificate for, and you can get it for less than $100, I think. And also, remember I showed you, in order to have this mobile access through Service Bus Relay going to REST going, you don't really need the identity part, right? If you just want to set that part up, call into AX, right? Because all you need is that simple web token. Remember the stuff I did with Fiddler, right? So nothing prevents you from moving forward with this, your mobile application development. It's just, when you go production, or obviously you have to have the identity story complete before you publish it, unfortunately. I mean, security comes at a cost, right? Yes?
With these mobile apps,
Mm.
is there any licensing in terms of, I've got I write an app for my
Are you okay? Are you talking about existing companion apps, or are you actually writing custom mobile apps that access AX? So, obviously, I'm not the best person to talk about license. But if the user is created on the X side, right? Obviously, you need a license for that, right? If you carry the identity around and use the same identity to call into X, obviously you need that one. But if you're doing things like, let me follow you up on that one because I don't want to say anything on the mic that's not politically correct or impact our license revenue. So, let's talk offline. Not that I have a way to get around that, okay? For the record. Any other questions? What do you guys think? Good? All right. Thank you, guys.